30% tax relief. That's a potential immediate £60,000 return on a £200,000 investment. So what actually are VCTs, and should you invest in them? VCTs, or venture capital trusts, are companies in their own right that pool money together and invest in mainly small, unlisted companies. Investors can buy shares in the VCT to benefit from the growth in the underlying investments. At least 80% of these investments have to be held in qualifying companies in order for the trust to be considered a VCT. There are a whole range of rules that a company has to meet before it can qualify for VCT investments, but they generally relate to the size and maturity. So most of the time, the companies have to have fewer than 250 employees, can't have been trading for longer than 7 years, have to be established in the UK, and can't be listed. By their very nature then, they're considered high-risk investments. But there are some helpful mitigators in that VCTs are limited in how much they can hold in a single company, and the remaining 20% of the trust can be in non-qualifying assets like listed companies and cash. So they do at least provide far greater diversification than things like single company EIS investments. The UK government wants to encourage people to invest in small companies with UK operations. So as I touched on at the start, VCTs offer a whopping 30% upfront income tax relief, which is their main benefit. But the tax reliefs don't stop there. There is also no income tax to pay on dividends and no tax to pay on capital gains. So whilst they are high risk, if they're used in the correct way for the right person, they can have some amazing advantages. It's really important to stress though that the 30% income tax relief only remains valid if you hold the investment for at least 5 years. And of course it's up to 30%, as you will need to have generated enough income tax in that tax year to benefit from the full relief. You also can't invest more than $200,000 into a VCT each tax year. And it's worth pointing out that second-hand VCT shares don't offer the same tax benefits, so the market for them is far more limited, particularly compared to listed shares, which can make them a bit more challenging to sell. First of all, it's important to say that VCTs are typically only right for the few rather than the masses. Because of their high-risk nature, they're usually only suitable for people with other significant investments. Typically, a VCT is a last planning step after someone is already maxing out their pension contributions, ISA allowance, and using up their annual capital gains tax allowance. You'd also expect the remainder of their investments to be well diversified across a broad range of asset classes and managed by professionals who are focusing on both risk and return. The place VCTs tend to come into their own is for high earners who are earning more than £360,000 a year and are subject to full tapering on their annual pension contributions, right down to £10,000. A VCT can provide a great alternative to the income tax relief that this person would have otherwise received in a pension if they weren't subject to such heavy tapering. So as well as offering them an interesting growth opportunity in smaller companies, they can really help reduce their short-term tax bill. VCTs can also be a really interesting option for someone already using their tax-free allowances, but also has other taxable assets that may be producing significant capital gains. VCTs can act as a helpful diversifier if they want to broaden their investments further without worsening their capital gains tax position. Of course, whilst I've outlined some examples, everyone's situation is different, and VCTs are particularly specialist vehicles, so you should really be taking advice if you're considering using them. It's not just about understanding when to effectively make use of a VCT, but also having the ability to manage the risk of your remaining investments alongside them. Very few non-professionals have the expertise or tools to do this well. It's also worth pointing out that whilst the tax treatment of VCTs hasn't really changed for almost 30 years, these are long-term investments and the government can always change the treatment of these vehicles. So it definitely won't hurt to have a professional working with you who can keep on top of these rules and how they change each tax year. So if you're one of the people that are interested in VCTs, take some time to ensure your situation is the right one and find a high-quality advisor to help you work through your options. Because remember, your money really does matter.